Hello all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Goulet. Two U.S. Army helicopters crashed in Kentucky and another train derailment occurred. This one was in Minnesota. Pope Francis will be hospitalized for several days to treat a respiratory infection. This comes just days before Palm Sunday. Brazil and China have struck a deal to ditch the U.S. dollar for trade, and China is breaking up the AliBaba empire while its founder, billionaire Jack Ma, returns to the mainland after staying away for a couple of years, seemingly in protest of the Communist Party's firm grip. The Supreme Court handed down a big victory to President Trump that even Biden supports. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate voted to end the COVID national emergency, and President Trump continues to gain popularity according to a new Fox News national survey, and reparations for Black Californians could top $800 billion, and this does not include a recommended $1 million per older Black resident for health disparities that have shortened their average lifespan. Okay, let's get into it. Late on Wednesday, two U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters crashed over Kentucky, killing more than 9 people so far. The 101st Airborne Division account on Twitter stated that we can confirm 2 aircraft from the 101st were involved in an accident last night, resulting in several casualties. Right now, our focus is on the soldiers and their families who were involved. The Fort Campbell Public Affairs Office said that the status of the service members involved in the incident remain unclear. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear also stated that local officials were responding to the crash and that fatalities are expected. The helicopters that crashed in the incident are a variant of Black Hawk helicopters. That is, they are designed to provide support for a range of military operations, including medical evacuations and air assault. While the crash is under investigation, the cause is still yet unknown. And in another tragedy, residents of Raymond were evacuated after a freight train traveling through Minnesota derailed in a fiery crash. The train, which was operated by Burlington Northern Santa Fe, BNSF, was carrying tankers that were hauling a form of ethanol and corn syrup liquid. Approximately 22 cars derailed with 4 cars on fire. An evacuation zone was established for half a mile around the derailment, and residents were told to leave their homes. BNSF spokesperson Lena Kent stated that there are no other hazardous materials on the train and no injuries as a result of the incident. Kent added the main track is blocked and an estimated time for reopening the line is not available. The cause of the incident is still under investigation. Railroad safety has surged into the spotlight after last month's fiery derailment of a Norfolk Southern train near East Palestine, Ohio. Roughly half of the town's residents had to be evacuated after officials decided to release and burn toxic chemicals that the train was carrying in Ohio. On Wednesday, Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw visited East Palestine, where residents expressed concerns about property values, water quality, and long-term health effects. Shaw stated that the company has already committed $27 million to the community, and he called it just a start. He also promised that we are going to be here a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Our hearts go out to the people in all the communities that have recently been affected by these train derailments. The Supreme Court handed down a big victory to President Trump that even Biden supports. On Monday, the Supreme Court denied USP Holdings' appeal after lower courts rejected its claim that the Trump administration acted improperly when enacting tariffs. USP and the other companies who were suing tried to claim that the report that recommended the tariffs was in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. That argument was rejected in 2021 by the trade court. The trade court ruled that the tariffs report was not a final agency action. Later, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit differed from the trade court about the report, but the appeals court still refused to find that imposing the tariffs violated the Administrative Procedures Act. Then USP Holdings appealed to the Supreme Court, but the appeal was denied without comment. Joe Biden has left the tariffs largely as Trump imposed them, and Biden even supports the tariffs. The Biden administration even urged the court to reject the challenge. Even though the tariffs may anger allies, American workers benefit by keeping Trump's policy intact. The latest Fox News national survey shows that President Donald Trump has extended his lead in the Republican primary race. Meanwhile, Joe Biden continues to face uncertainty among Democratic primary voters. A list of 15 announced and potential candidates for the Republican nomination in 2024 was presented to primary voters. The survey that was released on Wednesday shows that President Trump has doubled his lead since February, and he is 30 points ahead of Ron DeSantis. President Trump has 54%, while DeSantis has 24%. Last month, President Trump was up by 15 points at 43% to 28%. There is no one else who has double digits. Third place goes to Mike Pence with 6%, followed by Liz Cheney and Nikki Haley with 3% each, and Greg Abbott with 2%. The rest received less than 1% support. For Democrats, 52% of Democratic primary voters want someone other than Biden to be their party's presidential nominee. This is basically the same number as last month, which was 53%. According to the survey, there are now 44% of voters who want Biden as the nominee. Even though Biden is expected to run again, he has not yet announced his re-election campaign. On March 29th, the Senate passed a resolution in a 68-23 vote to end the COVID-19 national emergency sooner than scheduled. As Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told Democrats, President Joe Biden is expected to sign the measure. The resolution, which was introduced by Representative Paul Gosar, passed the House on February 1st, and it plans to end the COVID national emergency on May 11th. This bill will end the national emergency 1 month earlier than planned. Last year, a similar resolution passed the Senate, but it failed in the Democrat-controlled House. This year, the bill passed the House in a 229 to 197 vote with the support of 11 Democrats. Also, the administration plans to end the COVID public health emergency. The national emergency is different from the public health emergency. Under federal law, Congress has the power to ask for periodic votes to terminate a national emergency. While Biden opposed the bill when it was making its way through the Congress, a White House spokesperson confirmed on Wednesday that Biden would not veto it. California task force economists estimate that compensation for black residents for harm caused by policing and housing discrimination could reach more than $800 billion. That's more than 2.5 times California's annual budget. And this does not include a recommended $1 million per older black resident for health disparities that have shortened their average lifespan. In addition, the task force says that these figures do not include compensating people for property that was unjustly taken by the government or for devaluing black businesses. The reparations task force met on Wednesday in order to discuss the numbers and to vote on whether to adopt the suggestions or to come up with their own figures. In an interview prior to the meeting, Assembly member Reggie Jones-Sawyer noted that he needed to consult budget analysts before making a decision on the scale of payments. Sawyer is one of the 2 lawmakers on the task force who is responsible for mustering support from state legislators and from Governor Gavin Newsom. Even though the estimates aren't new, the task force must now decide on a cash amount as it approaches a July 1st deadline. For those who support reparations, the staggering $800 billion estimate underscores the long-lasting harm that black Americans have endured. However, some critics point to the fact that California was never a slave state, and they say that taxpayers should not be responsible for damages caused by events that began hundreds of years ago. Bob Woodson, a prominent black conservative, calls reparations impractical, controversial, and counterproductive. Woodson said no amount of money could ever make right the evil of slavery, and it is insulting to suggest that it could. He added that black communities rely on faith and on family in order to build thriving communities following slavery. The Vatican announced on March 29th that Pope Francis would be hospitalized for several days for treatment of a respiratory infection that has caused breathing difficulties. Pope Francis was taken to a general hospital in Rome, Italy, after complaining of breathing difficulties in recent days. Reportedly, tests showed that he had an infection, but he did not have COVID-19. Pope Francis is more susceptible to respiratory problems since part of one of his lungs was removed in his 20s. The 86-year-old Pope has been using a wheelchair for more than a year after suffering strained ligaments in his right knee and a small knee fracture. However, recently he has been seen walking more with the cane and has claimed that his injury is healing. In February, the Pope visited the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan despite his ongoing health problems. Also on Wednesday, he appeared in relatively good spirits during his regular general audience, although he grimaced and seemed to struggle while he was getting in and out of his car. Pope Francis is being hospitalized for the first time since July of 2021, when he spent 10 days in the hospital to have 13 inches of his colon removed. Concerns have now been raised about his health ahead of what is sure to be a very busy few weeks for the pontiff, beginning this week with Palm Sunday ahead of Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. Furthermore, he is scheduled to visit Hungary at the end of April in order to discuss migration to Europe and to discuss Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The Pope has canceled all audiences through Friday, but he has not yet made any comments about Holy Week. Brazil and China have reportedly agreed to abandon the US dollar in trade transactions in favor of their own currencies. Under the new agreement that was announced on Wednesday, China and Brazil can exchange their own currencies instead of first converting their currencies into dollars. The Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotion Agency stated that the new arrangement is expected to reduce costs and to promote even greater bilateral trade and facilitate investment. Following the United States, China is Brazil's largest trading partner, which accounts for over 1/5 of all Brazil's imports. China is also Brazil's largest export market. More than 1/3 of Brazil's exports go to China. In 2009, China overtook the United States as Brazil's top trading partner. In Latin America, Brazil is the largest beneficiary of Chinese investment, mainly through oil extraction and high-tension electricity transmission lines. China and Brazil reached a preliminary agreement in January to ditch the US dollar. The deal's announcement came after a high-level China-Brazil business meeting in Beijing. The Chinese e-commerce giant AliBaba announced on March 28th that it will split into 6 units after its billionaire co-founder Jack Ma returned to China upon the Communist Party's request. This indicates that Beijing's policy towards large Chinese tech companies that are privately owned has not fundamentally changed. AliBaba's South China Morning Post confirmed Jack Ma's return to China on March 27th. The newspaper said that Ma visited a school in China that was set up in 2017 by Ma and other founders of AliBaba. And on March 28th, Zhang Yang, the chairman and CEO of AliBaba, announced the 16N organizational restructuring plan of AliBaba. With the new plan, Ma's empire will be broken up into 6 business groups and numerous companies for the first time in 24 years. There will be separate boards of directors and CEOs for each unit. And the AliBaba group will fully implement a holding company management. Over the last few years, businesses have found it increasingly difficult to survive due to central government suppression of China's private sector across many industries under the policy of the state enterprises advancing and the private sector retreating. In late 2020, the CCP began clamping down on the tech industry. In early 2020, Jack Ma criticized the Chinese regulatory system, prompting Beijing to increase its scrutiny of AliBaba, which eventually led to Ma's withdrawal from public events. At the end of 2021, Ma left China and appeared in Japan, Spain, Australia, and Thailand. Eventually, Ma lost his influence and his control over a number of his companies and wealth while he was away. Beginning in January, Ma gradually gave up control of Ant Group, Hong Seng Electronics, and other companies. It's also believed that Ma's staying abroad is a protest against the CCP's behavior toward Chinese entrepreneurs. China's economy has declined significantly over the last 3 years because of the regime's severe zero-COVID policy and its control measures. Therefore, Xi Jinping changed his tone, and he repeatedly expressed his support for the private sector, saying that he always treated private enterprises as his own people. Several international media outlets also reported that the CCP authorities wanted Ma to return to China in order to reverse the perception that Chinese business conditions have deteriorated. However, despite Beijing's efforts to push private companies to contribute to the country's economic growth and to create jobs, the CCP still wants to limit the influence of private tech giants. Kwei-Wan Jun, a professor of finance at the Northeastern University in Boston, believes that Ma's return to China is likely because he has made some secret deal with the CCP top circle, or that he has received some promises from them. Kwei suggests that private entrepreneurs may temporarily feel less pressure as a result of the CCP's high-profile promotion of its support for private enterprises. However, it does not solve the Chinese economy's problems in the long run. He explained that a long-term solution to the problem lies in establishing a reasonable and legal system by implementing it in accordance with the law and procedural justice. It's not an artificially created campaign to temporarily boost the confidence of entrepreneurs. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. We've also heard from many of our viewers that they don't get notifications of our videos anymore from YouTube. So please follow us on Telegram, Gab, Getter, True Social, and on Ganjing World for the latest updates. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.